Hello friends, I'm Erin and I am your Dark Side Cutie. So in this video I thought I'd talk about really what got me started in the goth subculture and pretty much give you guys a brief overview of the lore that brought me into the goth subculture and really helped me discover the dark side to me. This may be a little bit longer of a video, but either way I hope to connect with you guys a little bit and just kind of chill. I knew early on that I was drawn to more darkly inclined things. One of the more fonder memories of my childhood, I was like 5 or 6, and we were getting catalogs from Design Toscano, and they had a lot of like gothic artwork in like just throughout the catalog, statues, paintings, everything else, and they had these depictions of what I thought were angels. They were depicted as having like dark hair, dramatic makeup, pale skin, and 5-year-old me was like, that's what an angel looks like. I want to look like that. I mean, I was dead set, like my friends were wanting to look like Barbie and I was like, I want to look like this. This is an angel. But either way, from there I learned about different or so-called darker interests. I will go ahead and say, given her faults, my mom was a little bit on the nuttier side, but even with her faults, she did have some very open views when it comes to like afterlife and things of that sort. So it wasn't uncommon for me to be like, Mom, can we like just go to the cemetery and look at like statues and stuff? And she was like, oh sure, I'll even show you some really cool ones you haven't seen before. So that was one of the upsides to my childhood. But I remember going one weekend and seeing these absolutely beautiful statues and walking through like a mausoleum and everything else and just admiring the artwork and the stained glass windows and everything, as well as some of the prettier like tombstones and headstones and things of that sort. And I remember going to school that Monday and my friends and some other classmates were just kind of sitting around talking about what they did over the weekend. And theirs was like typical stuff like, oh well, I watched this, I went here with my grandparents, I went here, I went there. And when they were like, oh Erin, what'd you do over the weekend? I proudly and loudly proclaimed I hung out in a cemetery, and they just stared blankly at me as if I had like tentacles growing out of my ears or something. I don't know. But they just kind of stared at me like, okay, you're weird. My introduction to and formation of the love of goth music came later in my childhood. So about, say about 9 or 10. I was allowed to watch things like VH1 and MTV when they had like their music hours, and I was especially drawn to 80s music. They play some of the hits from like The Cure, and Susie and the Banshees, bands along those lines that were a little bit more mainstream, and I absolutely fell in love with the sound. I didn't hear the term goth or gothic until about 5th grade, which would translate to about 10 or 11 for reference. I know not all my audience is from the US, but either way I fell in love with the sound, and when it came to hearing the words goth or gothic for the first time, it was in like 5th grade, so about 10 or 11, and that was mainly when it came to the fashion aspect of the goth subculture. I'm a child of the early 2000s, and that is when different styles and everything were really popping off. And I remember in middle and high school, scene, emo, and gothic were kind of just like melting together. And one of the stores I went to, I want to say in about 7th grade, was Hot Topic. I remember seeing truck pants and everything else, and I was like, I want to dress like this. I want to look like this. The inner 5-year-old that was like, I want to look like an angel, saw these clothes that Hot Topic had at the time, and I was, finally, my dream! My dream can come true! Even though she had an open view of like death and the afterlife, my mom did not approve. She was a child of the 60s and my maternal grandmother, so her mom, was very religious, and even so they both witnessed the Satanic Panic of the 1980s and everything else going on, and they watched the whole goth being a scapegoat for a lot of things. And when I started showing interest in dressing a certain way, it was automatically shut down. Like, no, no, no. Like I said, I was automatically drawn to that kind of stuff. I was mind blown at all the different styles that I guess would be considered like the sub-genres of goth fashion. Like, styles and stuff that I found were absolutely beautiful. I wanted to recreate them so bad. But like I said, where my mom was uber religious and saw all this stuff going on, it was shut down. Like, I couldn't do it. She was afraid that I was going to be perceived as being like a freak or anything like that, and child me didn't care as much, but it was a clash of wills to get her to do a lot of things, so I just didn't want to bring it up that much. And it took me going to community college and even moving to Florida in order for me to feel more comfortable in my skin. It really took more recent events to where I feel even more so comfortable in my skin and more comfortable, like, customizing my avatar, for lack of a better term. I feel so at home in the goth subculture. I've never felt more welcome. So I hope that you guys definitely understand where I'm coming from with this. I hope this helps someone out there. Just thanks for chilling with me today. Thank you for tuning in, and stay spooky.